Welcome back to Cozy Couch Contingencies, the podcast where behavior meets real life, and where your hosts aren't afraid to say right now, wait, what even is that?
I'm Alyssa.
I'm Krista, and today we're talking about something that's definitely not in your Cooper textbook, but it shows up in real life, and it's pandas, or PANS.
No, not the black and white fuzzy kind, although we do really love those. We're talking about pediatric autoimmune neuropsychiatric disorders associated with streptococcal infections. What a mouthful.
It is quite the mouthful.
Yeah.
So here's the deal. If you're working with kids, especially ones with sudden onset OCD-like symptoms, tics, extreme emotional dysregulation, or regression, you need to know what PANDAS is, and there's also PANS.
Yeah, so let's break it down a little bit. So according to the National Institute of Mental Health, we're starting with PANS. So that's Pediatric Acute Onset Neuropsychiatric Syndrome, PANS. And there's also the Pediatric Autoimmune Neuropsychiatric Disorders associated with streptococcal infections. These are conditions characterized by a sudden severe onset of obsessive-compulsive disorder or restricting eating disorders in children before puberty. So that's just a little background. Again, this is from the National Institute of Mental Health, this information. I will cite all of this down at the end. But just kind of going back, it's believed to be a neuroimmune condition, meaning the body has an autoimmune reaction to a strep infection. This is PANDAS specifically. But instead of just fighting it, it kind of attacks part of the brain, specifically the basal ganglia, which is involved in movement, behavior regulation, and emotion.
And the result is sudden, dramatic changes in behavior, like overnight. The onset of OCD, motor or vocal tics, separation anxiety, regression, sensory issues, even handwriting regression can all happen when your child starts showing signs or symptoms of PANDAS, and it is the same for PANS.
Mm-hmm. So we're talking like a full-blown behavior shift, not a slow build over time. One day the child's functioning, is baseline. The next day the parents are like, what just happened?
Yeah, so I think from our standpoint, we want to make sure that we are talking about this because it is not something that is well known. Even in the medical field, I would say it's probably not as well known and probably not discussed as much as it should be. It is something that is newer, but it also explains a lot of things that us as BCBAs have seen, not us specifically, but as a field, we want to make sure we're having this in mind.
Mm-hmm.
So from the BCBA lens, here's what it might look like. A previously calm child becomes suddenly very aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
It is regression in toileting or language. There's new or intense phobias or compulsive behaviors. There's emotional outbursts that feel like they're out of proportion. Handwriting or fine motor difficulties when they didn't have them before. Sudden food restrictions or eating disorders.
So if you're thinking, that sounds like a bunch of different diagnoses mixed together, yeah, that's true. That's why it's so often misunderstood, though. And PANDAS can mimic other things like OCD, Tourette's, anxiety disorders, even autism traits.
And there's a big differentiator. It has to be sudden. It has to be the sudden onset of the symptoms. And it can be from a recent strep infection if it's PANDAS, and then what was PANS? It just came on.
It's same. So it's sudden onset too.
It wasn't an infection though.
No, it was just the sudden onset. It was
just
like
the sudden onset.
Yeah.
So we just want to make sure we're very clear.
But I can reference it again just to be safe.
Neither of us know about this in the way that we wish we could. We did some research. There isn't much you can find besides the National Institute of Mental Health.
Yeah, that's where I'm finding all the information. There are other sites that are more medical as well, similar ideas behind it, but it is stemming from a neuropsychiatric standpoint. And also, in addition to that, a lot of it is still researching. There's not a lot known about it, or the exact causes at least.
So it is something that is very new, but we kind of have a feeling we're going to be running into it more often than not.
Mm-hmm.
And it may also explain a lot of what we've seen in the past or what people have ran into. So we just wanted to bring it up, kind of give you the information in one spot, and maybe as a collective group, if you're watching this, can learn a little bit more about it. We're always down to learn from some CEUs or watch a video or listen to a podcast that can help explain something that may affect our clients and students more. So we would love if you guys have any resources, please reach out and let us know.
Yeah, we're diving down deep and we're trying to find things that we don't know about, because we know that if we don't know about it, there's a good chance others may not know about it too. So here's the tricky part about all of this. We don't diagnose. That's not our realm, not our field of our expertise. But we do observe patterns, and we can absolutely advocate when something feels off.
And if a family tells you it's like a switch flipped or they're seeing rapid regression without a clear trigger, it's okay to say, have you talked to your pediatrician or your doctor? That's all you can really say. And you can also tell them that you can collect data and you can support them. Again, like Alyssa said, we can't diagnose, but we can help. We can help them figure out if it's something that is truly happening just randomly from the previous data that was collected, and it is that sudden onset, or if there was a medication change and maybe that's impacting the changes in behaviors, or if they had a growth spurt and they're not eating as much as they need to eat more because now they're more weight and height and all of the things that kind of impact that. So there can be so many changes and so many things that are happening and so many environmental factors. But we can always support and we can always take that data and we can always show that, yes, there are that sudden onset of symptoms.
So it's about staying in our scope and being a good teammate. You're not diagnosing, you're noticing different situations, you're documenting, you're collaborating. These are pieces that we can do within our ethical code. And that's the important part to remember. So let's talk about compassion. Families navigating PANDAS and PANS are often really tired, they're exhausted, confused, and frankly, not always believed. Sometimes they are, sometimes they're supported by doctors. But because PANDAS and PANS can look like so many different things, and it could look like OCD, it could look like Tourette's, these different pieces, that it might be difficult for them to get a diagnosis that they truly think is what their child is experiencing.
Yes, and I can't even imagine, we're both moms, cannot even imagine watching your child change like that overnight. It must be horrific and terrifying, and you don't know how to help them anymore. And I can't even imagine, especially if you've had services for almost their entire life, and then all of a sudden for that switch to be flipped and not know who to turn to is a very scary place to be.
100%. So our job is to listen, to validate, and to make sure our supports don't go off the deep end and, we don't help them. We want to still be there to take and be there. That might mean pausing skill acquisition and focusing on stabilization and just maintaining. It might mean revising data collection to reflect that medical piece that they might be seeing. Or it could be just taking data on the number of behaviors we've got currently versus what we had before. That sort of thing.
And I think something we talked about in our last episode was that medical piece and making sure that medical piece is ruled out. This is where you can firmly stand by your ethical code. And you can say, listen, there's something going on. I wholeheartedly agree with you and I hear you. But unfortunately, at this time, you have to go to the doctors. You can bring all of this data. We are going to take a pause and we are not going to put anything else on this child at the moment. You guys need to figure out what you need to do from your end. We're going to support you. We are here. As soon as you know what's going on and medical's ruled out, or if medical does not get ruled out and you have to alter all the programming, you at least know that you're doing what's best for that kid.
Agreed. I think it's the most important. Yeah.
It really is. So let's end with some tools. I know we haven't given you much information. We were kind of hoping that we would have a little more, but this is definitely very, very new. So as BCBAs that will most likely encounter this at some point in our careers, what are some things we can do to support these families? Because it is something that is so difficult and so new. So we can document patterns, like we said. We can document if things have changed, if there's an illness, or if they're sleeping more frequently, if they're regressing at all. We can document all of that. We can also collaborate, and we can collaborate with medical teams. If you have those releases signed, or if parents want to invite us to those meetings with their doctors, that is fine. We can say, hey, this is what we're seeing. This is how long we've been with them. This is what we previously saw. This is what we're seeing now. And have those open conversations to really help build the whole picture for them.
Yeah.
And we just want to make sure we're advocating gently. This is uncharted territory for all of us, including the families. So just saying, hey, if you're seeing these changes, reach out to medical professionals, please. Like, you can reach out to them and say, this is what happened, this is what I'm seeing. I want to advocate and do what's best for my child. And we as BCBAs have to be flexible. This is something that we do not know about. Again, this is new. So this is something that I'm sure as a field we are going to have to learn more about, and we are going to have to figure out how to work with these children that are coming up with these behaviors, but also knowing this is something that might be neurological, and how are we going to address that while staying with our ethical code and while understanding that we look at the behaviors on the outside. How do we manage both at the same time?
Yeah.
So that's really tough. So we have to be flexible and understand that things are going to probably have to change. And I think there's more of flare-ups is what I'm understanding from the stuff that I've read, that it can kind of go away for a little while and then all of a sudden it'll come back. So we have to understand that when those flare-ups do happen, we have to kind of go back to square one or pause things again. So just knowing this is going to be something we are really going to have to work through.
Yeah, so, and if you're feeling like you have no idea what you're doing when it comes to PANDAS or PANS, same. We're all learning. Krista and I did the research, and that's okay to not know everything. That's the most important thing that I think we're realizing, and it's, leading with that curiosity and care. And that's what makes you a good BCBA.
It does. It really does. And PANDAS and PANS is one of those things that we just want to make sure that we are supporting families. We are there for them. It is hard sometimes when you're in the trenches, you're deep in it, and you're really trying to decrease those behaviors and teach them functional replacement behaviors. But just remember, it's okay. There are going to be times where it's not all going to work in your favor, and it is okay to hit the reset button.
And being a great BCBA doesn't mean having all the answers. It means knowing when to ask bigger questions and to seek out help when you need it, especially that medical piece of help that we can't cover.
Yeah, so we just wanted to give you kind of our overview of what we found and let you know this is something that we are both interested in. And if you have a child with PANDAS or PANS, or you have been affected by it in some way, or have even consulted to a child that has had PANDAS or PANS, we would love to know more and kind of understand and how to better help them, but also help us as BCBAs realize how we can kind of support these families. So
share it in the comments.
Yeah.
It would be a great way to make community, and I think that it would be really great to hear your stories, so we want to hear them.
Yes.
Share away.
Please do.
Yeah.
So next week, we are kind of switching gears a little.
I love it.
We're so excited. We are going to have some guests or a guest. Guess you guys will have to find out next week.
We'll see.
But we want to talk about more about application of ABA and how ABA truly does relate to real life.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, one of the topics we're going to talk about is what is ABA. Because I don't think we've ever done that yet.
And we probably should have started with that, but we're
Probably.
in our own rhythm, so we'll get our own way around
Working
it.
backwards a little. Just a little backward chaining.
Ooh, yeah.
Just kidding.
Yeah,
but
just fun.
But we definitely feel like we can introduce that in a fun way by explaining it to our friend or friends.
And applying it to their life.
Yes, and we actually started talking to some of them about this last weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And
they're kind of jazzed about it.
They were like, wow, we didn't really know what you did. And we were like, yeah, we know. That's why we're here. Nobody really knows what we do unless you are a BCBA sometimes. So we just wanted to kind of open the conversation and have a little bit of fun with what our passion is.
Yeah.
Because we are both very passionate and love ABA.
So I guess we should do our last bit. Until then, stay cozy, stay curious, and stay compassionate.
And cheers to Cozy Couch Contingencies.